George. "There's a lady down in Boisingham as is the real Mrs. Quest." "It's a lie," she shrieked. "It's a lie. He married me before he married her. I could have him in the dock to-morrow, and I would too if I wasn't afraid of him, and that's a fact." "Come, marm, come," said George, "draw it mild from that tap." "You won't believe me, won't you?" said the woman, on whom the liquor was now beginning to take its full effect. "Then I'll show you," and she staggered to a desk, unlocked it, and took from it a folded paper which she opened. It was a marriage licence, or purported to be so, but George, who was not too quick at his reading, had only time to note the name Quest and the church, St. Bartholomew's, Hackney, when she snatched it away from him and locked it up again. "There," she said, "it isn't any business of yours. What right have you to come prying into the affairs of a poor lone woman?" And she sat down upon the sofa beside him, threw her long arm round his neck, rested her painted face upon his shoulder, and began to weep, the tears of intoxication. "Well, blow me," said George to himself, "if this ain't a master one. I wonder what my old missus would say if she saw me in this fix. I say, marm." But at that moment the door opened and in came Johnnie, who had evidently also been employing the interval in refreshing himself, for he rolled like a ship in a sea. "Well," he said, "and who the deuce are you? Come, get out of this, you Methody parson-faced clodhopper, you. Fairest Edithia, what means this?" By this time the fairest Edithia had realised who her visitor was, and the trick whereby he had left her to pay for the brandy and soda recurring to her mind, she sprang up and began to express her opinion of Johnnie in violent and libellous language. He replied in appropriate terms, as people whose healths are proposed always do, according to the newspaper reports, and fast and furious grew the fun. At length, however, it seemed to occur to Johnnie that he, George, was in some way responsible for this state of affairs, for without word or warning he hit him on the nose, which proved too much for George's Christian forbearance. "You would, you fat lubber, would you?" he said, and sprang at him. Now Johnnie was big and fat, but Johnnie was rather drunk, and George was tough and exceedingly strong. In almost less time than it takes to write it, he had the abominable Johnnie by the scruff of the neck, and had with a mighty jerk hauled him over the sofa, so that he lay face downward thereon. By the door, quite convenient to his hand, stood George's ground ash stick, a peculiar good and well-grown one, which he had cut himself in Honham wood. He seized it. "Now, my lad," he said, "I'll teach you how to do the trick where I come from," and he laid on without mercy. Whack, whack, whack went the ground ash on Johnnie's tight clothes. He yelled and swore, and struggled in the grip of the sturdy countryman. But it was of no use. The ash came down like fate. Never was Johnnie so bastinadoed before. "Give it the brute, give it him," shrilled the fair Edithia, bethinking her of her wrongs, and he did till he was tired. "Now, Johnnie," he said at last, "I'm thinking I've pretty well whacked you dead. Perhaps you'll be more careful how you handle your betters by and by." And seizing his hat, he ran down the stairs without seeing anybody, and slipping into the street, crossed over and listened. They were at it again. Seeing her enemy prostrate, the Tiger had fallen on him, apparently with the fire irons, to judge from the noise. Just then a policeman came hurrying up. "I say, governor," said George, "the folk in that there house with the red pillars do fare to be a murdering of each other." The policeman listened to the din and then made for the house, and profiting by his absence, George retreated as fast as he could, his melancholy countenance shining with a sober satisfaction. End of chapter 28.